What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we are going to give you a state of the markets and give you some stock picks to look forward to on January 27th, 2022. So if that's something you sound like you're interested in, remember to subscribe for daily updates as well as weekly updates to get you prepared for the market. So being said, state of the markets, we had the big event today. We had Powell. There were a lot of different things. Obviously, the market traded almost perfectly flat until we came into Powell. The market actually started to push. Some individual stocks started to push. Some of your tech leads started pushing up pretty hard into Powell. But as soon as we hit that hourly mark to essentially 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the market pulled back pretty heavy back to essentially our safe haven here, which essentially we're playing the 415 all day. And then Powell came on. The report came out, and then the market got excited. It did this the last FOMC meeting as well. It got excited for a second because of the fact they said there was no rate raise. Once people actually start reading it and digesting it, the market starts to react in the way it actually wants to react. Initially, it pumped because there was no rate raise. But then we had Powell actually come on and start taking questions, and that is when the market lost it. Yes, there'll be no rate raises, but being said, tapering will stop in March. Then you had Powell come on, and he essentially said that even though there won't be rate raises, that they're possibly going to start getting multiple rate raises at some point. So it's possible to predict that the policy rate will be appropriate. At this time, we have not made any decision with regards to our path of policy. So again, everything is still iffy as far as when the rates will happen, something I've been talking about. But he did say a fair amount of room to raise interest rates without hurting employment. So being said, we're going to get emergency rate raises. That is what's going to happen, in my opinion. We're going to have these FOMC meetings every month, and I'm sure around that time, until we actually get the rate raise, we're going to get a lot of volatility. This is going to be a very volatile year dealing with these rate raises because when that news the report initially came out, the market was very confused. Because of the fact that it said it would actually stop tapering completely in March. So people didn't like that. So we started selling about 15 minutes in because the market digested, oh, wait, well, there is no rate raises, but we're giving up all tapering in March. And then Powell answering questions and then saying that, well, you know, there's possibility of multiple rate raises still being talked about. And then he kept talking about inflation. It really depends on inflation. The market didn't like that. It kept selling. Being said, where do we go from here? I think ultimately, you know, to wrap everything up with Powell today, what's ultimately going on is, yes, they don't know what they're going to do. And that's why I'm thinking they're going to do an emergency rate raise. They normally televise these moves that they do. But if inflation gets carried away, they're going to have nothing to do but to do emergency rate raises. And they'll do it periodically throughout the year. It's very possible, depending if inflation starts to run away, which in itself, it's all a very slippery slope. If rate raises come in too fast, you're going to hurt the economy. The Fed know that. So we're essentially walking on eggshells going into this year. We've already had a correction. I think the market itself, the market makers themselves, try to price in some of that rate raise with this correction that we've had in the beginning of the year. Is it enough? I'm not sure. I don't really think a rate raise is going to crush the markets. But we've already seen, again, that 10% correction. Are we going to wake up tomorrow and gap down? Could be a possibility. I think with the fact that the market, just from throwing a fit and not really knowing what is coming, because there was no clarification. There's so much uncertainty in still what he says that the market is not going to like that. And so we might get a gap down, and we might switch back over and start becoming bullish again. But the biggest thing to keep in mind here is that it doesn't matter what you or I think about it. What matters is how is the market going to take it. And that's why I like overnight digestion on nights like this, these historic days like this. You have to get that overnight digestion. Once you get the overnight digestion, you kind of see where the market wants to go after that point. Even if you look at the SPY here, we are essentially at a really good spot. We are hovering around that 200 on the daily, which is a good reversal. So needless to say, we have a lot of support where we're currently sitting at. If we gap down below that, then you're kind of looking at that 20 EMA on the monthly. We should get a good bounce off of that. So I can see a little bit more selling. Again, it really depends on the market. What is the market? How is the market going to take it? Again, the uncertainty is not good. People don't like the uncertainty because people aren't going to put their money in something they're not sure where it's going to go. So we're going to have to definitely see how we open. Tomorrow is going to be crucial on how we open. We'll kind of know how the market is going to take it, whether we stay flat, gap up, or gap down. If we gap up, the market's like, okay, well, we still got essentially the Fed until March. We still got no rate raises right now. The market could take that part of it positively and start pushing up and running for earnings and get in full earnings mode. Or we can say, oh, well, I don't like what Powell said. There's so much uncertainty there, so we're just going to sell off, try to essentially make that correction where we think it needs to be if there is a rate raise. So it'd be interesting to see where we open tomorrow. Bitcoin, again, still holding. Again, that 32 mark is really the make or break point for me on Bitcoin. Still holding above that. I think with the concern of inflation might start pushing Bitcoin back up. From this point, I think people are going to start looking for hedges because of the uncertainty this year. So I think that could be actually a big plus for Bitcoin. So we have to see how that plays out. Now, we did have Tesla earnings. This is something to watch and something I talk about. This is one of your leaders right here. And they had earnings. As you can see, it's been wicking back and forth. Obviously, a big battle going on here. We're going to have to see how we open tomorrow. If the market does not gap down and this stays flat, I expect Tesla to make a monster rip back up to 1,000. But it has to either stay, in my opinion, it has to stay flat or possibly hold that 900 tomorrow. If it does hold that, I think this thing can run tomorrow. But you have to see how it plays out. Again, pre-market is going to really matter. So again, you're looking at that around that 900 mark as the base of this zone. We do have the 200 support at that 850 mark. But once it blows past that, if we blow past that, I think the market will really be in for a shit show at that point. But we're going to have to see how that does play out. Microsoft had excellent earnings the other day. Did hit support, and like I said, it's been trading sideways. If this does open up sideways, holding the 200 on the daily at that 294 mark, see if we can push past this 303 mark tomorrow. If we can, again, we have a lot of overhead resistance there. Right now, we don't have a lot of positive news aside from the fact that the tapering and everything is going to be pushed in. We got another month before that happens, which is normally when we would correct. So maybe we get a couple good weeks here of pushing before we start correcting or doing some more of this volatility, going right back into the new FOMC meeting towards the end of the month of next month. So we'll have to see how that plays out. One thing, too, I did notice is Google has been extremely strong. It was one of the very few things that actually was pushing up today. again, trades flat. You got that weekly support at 25.58 at the 50 EMA, but you also have, again, resistance of the 200 daily at 26.31. So you got this nice range. If it does sit and hold here, I also have this base down here at the 25.17 mark as well. So if we do sell off a gap and hold this zone, can look for it to possibly come up. You definitely want to watch this resistance, because if you do break support, it becomes resistance. You're going to get a hard rejection off that, so be aware of that. So if you're riding this back up, get out of the position before it hits, because you don't want to absorb that pullback, as there will be a pullback, a really good pullback on that first retest. And then you have LRCX. They had earnings. They did well for the most part. I mean, they didn't beat on everything, but they still did amazing. Again, forward guidance isn't always the greatest. So this will be interesting to go. Again, if it holds flats and holds the 543 mark tomorrow, will it be important? Again, you got the 20 monthly at the 533 mark, and you got the 50 at the essentially that 600 mark right there as well. So you got nice range. I could possibly see us playing range until the market kind of figures out what it wants to do. Again, we could be guided up by Tesla. And then we got Apple earnings Thursday. And so it's actually been holding as well. So if it does come down here, hold at 157 mark to the 163 marks, you got a nice range here with Apple. If it gets earnings, I think on Thursday, tomorrow after the bell, we could possibly reverse this and start pushing back up. The market might be like, you know what, it's earnings mode. We're just going to proceed. And then in March or in February, FOMC will deal with whatever the consequences are for whatever that rate is. Again, no specific numbers are given. It's what expected. It was kind of really generic. We're going to get more of that kind of information further into the year that we go. So we have to see about that. The rest of them, Shop has been really beaten down. I really like Shop, but with this given market, it can't break that 12.18 mark. If it does, we're going to be in some hurting. Amazon is the same way. You don't want it to break this 27.41 mark. If it does break that, we can see the 200 weekly down here at 25.35. A strong possibility. Again, I think e-commerce might be hit really bad with everything that's going on. They've been essentially washing the cycle. So it's been tech leading, essentially your Apples, Tesla, specifically Microsoft that have been leading the way. Google been leading the way. Google's next week. So your chips are being kind of hit or miss. It really just depends on them. I think a lot of them have been pretty solid. Again, like forward guidance is going to be a hot mess with everything, just because everything's estimates are blown out of proportion in my opinion. So you really have to be mindful of that. But so going forward, just kind of keep an eye on those. Coin could be possibly one. I'm kind of waiting to see how the market digests everything. That might be something I bring up tomorrow. Avago is a big one I like. The 200 support sitting here at 227. Could get a revisit back down here at the 550 mark to possibly push up. And then we got a hard rejection here. Actually, we're going to remove this when we do this zone here. So you got a hard zone here at the 570. If you can break that, you get another pivot up to the 585. So if we're looking at some kind of retest, we could be actually breaking this this trend and might come back down. Again, it really just depends, but Avago is another one I want to watch. If it does hold, I'm kind of looking for that 200 for an entry. If we do come back down again to that 527, I think it would be a really good one to keep an eye on in the following days. The other one I really want to watch is Now. Now is a big one. Crushed earnings. It looks like a big bull flag. This one might actually do really well tomorrow. Trying to stay with momentum, play earnings plays. Again, Now and Tesla, I think we're going to be your big plays. If this thing doesn't gap up and sits here all night flat, look for it to break that 536 mark first. If it does break that, if the hourly candle breaks above that, that's when you get your entry. And then you got this pivot up to about 560 possible. I think now could be a big one tomorrow, especially with all the unknowns. I think people are kind of waiting to see what happens with the rest of earnings before they determine where the market's going. Could be a strong possibility. So just keep that in mind. But if you've made it this far, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Till next time, I'll see you guys